Welcome back to From Corporate to Cashflow. We are Andrea Cannon and Liz Schwab, two pharmacists navigating the process of building time and financial freedom through real estate investing and lending while working our day jobs. Navigating the journey is difficult, but our podcast guests are experts in showing us how it's done. Today, we have Audrey Blotz here with us, and we're super excited to have you. Audrey, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, guys. I'm so glad to be here. Connected recently at Squad Up Summit, so I'm very happy and honored to be on your podcast.
Yeah,
Thanks.
we're very excited to have you. So as you mentioned, we recently connected and it's always good to meet with fellow healthcare professionals and such. So very excited to
Mhm.
hear about your current employment and where you're headed, where you are now, and like your motivation behind all of that. So if you could just like kind of give us your story, like I said, where you are and but where you want to go and like what types of deals you're doing right now, we would love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. I went to school and did all the things that everybody tells you you're supposed to do and became a PA and thought I had basically reached the goal of what everyone talks about of like go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a professional degree. So did all that and then I'm about 5 years into being a physician assistant and I work in the emergency room and so schedule is wonky and I have two small kids and it just was not worth it. I was like working till 10 or midnight every night, waking up early with the kids in the morning, missing all the evening activities. A ton of the responsibility was falling on my husband, who commutes 3 hours. So it just wasn't working. And I just knew there had to be a better way. Like there's people that are becoming wealthy and building their wealth and doing investing and just like had it, you could just see like some people just have it figured out and I was like, okay, I know there's a trick here. I need to figure it out. And so I just kind of spiraled into the world of real estate investing. We had a long term rental property, and I thought, oh, this is going to be it. I'm just going to buy and hold and have a ton of buy and hold properties. And that's going to be our ticket to freedom. And quickly realized that that's not the ticket to freedom, at least not for me, because I don't want to manage properties or tenants or any of that stuff. And the cash flow from long term rentals isn't enough to get me to where I wanted to be. And so I realized that that wasn't going to be our path at this point, at least. And so that is kind of where I pivoted into sub two and found out about creative real estate and then also about private money lending. And as soon as I found out, I knew that that was what I needed to do. It was a higher cash flow monthly and a lot less like monthly maintenance, day-to-day work, things like that, managing all that stuff. And so I knew that this was going to be the right path and jumped in pretty quickly after that and never looked back.
Funny because Andrew and I just had this conversation, right, about how most people think that they want to be a landlord or have rentals. It's almost like that's step one for everyone who wants to
Mhm.
get into real estate, right? So I did the same thing and I was like, no, this is not for me. So it's funny that so many people have that similar story. And you said like once you learned about lending, you didn't look back. So how did you even hear about lending? Like how did you even figure out that this was an option or, something that you wanted to pursue?
Pace Morby is ultimately the answer to that. Like creative
Mhm.
finance, you learn about so many things outside of just a buy and hold portfolio. And throughout working through the sub two course and all the education that's provided, you consistently hear private money lender, private money lender, private money lender. You hear it all the time. And when you hear about the also the rates and the ability to make passive income off of it,
Mhm.
it caught my attention. And we had already had a long-term rental, my husband and I, in Washington State. And so when we sold it, because we were having a hard time managing it from long distance and it wasn't cash flowing like at all, so we just figured like we'll just sell it and take the money that we get from that rental and we can either buy more rentals here closer or we can lend. And so then I knew I had some cash to start lending with, and that's when I was like, okay, if I look at the money or the time and work required and the returns on investment, like long-term rentals is not going to do it. And I knew that lending could give us enough monthly income that I could start to cut back slowly on my shifts per month. And that was ultimately the goal is how many shifts per month can I cut back? Because that's 1, 2, 3, 4 days less that I have to rely on my mom, my grandma, my husband to do everything, for us as far as the kids go.
Right.
So yeah, as soon as I found out about lending through sub two, I knew that was going to be the right way.
Totally understand. We have very, very similar stories. And then are you
Yeah.
actively trying to get out of managing rentals then? Like completely like your old one? Or you said
Yeah,
you
we
sold it,
sold
right?
that. We
Yeah,
sold the
so you're no
rental.
longer doing that.
Yep, we sold it. It wasn't
Yeah,
even cash flowing. The dishwasher broke. The roof was leaking. Like we're like, this is not worth it.
yeah,
So we sold it, and we still made a decent amount of money on it because of COVID and how prices spiked and everything. So we still made a good amount of money, and I was able to use that to start lending and not fix a single roof since then.
yeah. Okay. Nope, that totally makes sense. It's just
Yeah,
this repetitive thing that we're hearing, right? As I mentioned, you start off as a landlord, have a rental, maybe unusual or unexpected repairs come up, or your cash flow so low at the beginning, or it's really hard to manage things out of state, or even by the time you get a property management company, then there goes like all your cash flow, right?
exactly.
So I just wanted to summarize that again because this is like such a common story that we're hearing from people who want to get into real
Hmm.
estate, but then realize that there may be better pathways. So it's
Right,
it's good
right.
to hear
And
that
a
you
lot of people
found
don't even
something.
know it exists. So I
Right.
love that. I love when people don't even know it exists and I get to be that person that like opens up their world to this other option. It's a very fulfilling feeling.
Yeah, no, and that makes honestly a ton of sense because, like Liz mentioned, we've both been chatting about the same exact thing. And I think you're really fortunate that you learned it pretty quickly, right? Like you did
Mhm.
one property and then you kind of made the decision to flip into, private money lending. Because I think
Mhm.
a lot of people make the transition much later who decide to do private money lending. And that's a lot of what we've heard too is like, somebody else that we interviewed had maybe 20 something rentals or something like that before they made the switch into private money lending. So it's pretty awesome that you recognize that right away. That's really, really cool. I think I know the answer to this question, but I want to clarify just was there anything in particular that inspired you to start looking for ways to create passive income outside of your 9 to 5 job? I'm suspecting it has to do with the family situation, but just wondering if anything else.
Yeah, I mean, definitely number one was the family, getting to spend time with the family. I was working a lot of like nights and weekends and things like that. The other aspect of it was that I just am not a very good W-2 worker. I hope none of my future employers watch this, but I just am not like I don't like when people tell me what to do. I don't like when you tell me like someone tells me when I can and cannot take a vacation, how much my time is worth, like just any of that stuff. I just don't like other people being in control of my life. And so that was also something that I had difficulty with of like, I don't want to work 14 days a month. That's too much. Well, that's part of your contract. Well, okay, then I'll go find a different contract. Okay, I found a different contract. Now it's only work 12 days a month, but they're 12-hour shifts and weekends and you're all this stuff. It's just like, no, 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 no. I just want to be in charge of my own time, my own life. I want to decide when I'm going to retire, what days I want to work, all that stuff. And so that was also a big factor for me of like, I just need some more control of my own life. I don't by any means desire the world of work till you're 60 to 65 and then retire and just try to make the best of your remaining 10, 5, 20 years. Like who knows what's left at that point. And so that was also another big driving factor of like, I want to live my life now on my own terms, not based off of what this employer is going to tell me I have to do. So yeah.
I love that. I think the flexibility is so key, and it's maybe like a millennial trait or something, but
Yeah, exactly.
relate to that. I think Liz and I first met. We're both pharmacists, and we met at a job that had like banker hours, and so most people think that that sounds great because there weren't any weekends and there weren't any nights. Like I was so miserable. It was just
Yes.
9 to 5:30. I like when you needed to go to like have a doctor's appointment or something, had to ask permission. It's like this just feels crazy. Neither of us could really take a full lunch break. Like you just sat like all the time and like in a little desk area. It was no good. And so I like,
No, and people do that for 40 years. I'm like, "Oh my gosh." That's
yeah,
nuts for me. For me, that's nuts. Other people thrive. For me, I can't do it.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same wavelength with that for sure. So I know we talked about maybe some of the lessons you learned with like knowing you don't want to be a landlord and such, but looking at where you are now and what you wish you would have known, if you had to give a piece of advice or just talk about one thing that you know now that you wish you would have known earlier, what would that be?
Something that I wish I would have known at the beginning of my real estate investing journey. Is that the question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Just like any advice, like, hey, I wish I would have known about lending earlier. I know that's hard to say, but like just anything in general that would be
Yeah.
helpful for someone else that's maybe like a little bit newer.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that helped me the most, and I don't know if it's like a new like hot take on advice, because from my perspective, it was told to me, at least 100 times before I actually listened. But the one thing that made all the difference for me is when I just picked one thing and then tunnel visioned on it and stopped thinking and listening and trying every other little thing. Like, especially in the real estate investing world, there's just so many different ways to get involved and so many different pathways to go down that I was like, oh, this it looks good. Like, let me try to do that. Or like, oh, they say that you need to be good at calling, cold calling sellers or whatever, good on the phone with agents. I need to start working on that. Or like, oh, here's another challenge that I should get involved in, because it's like everything that people are posting in sub two right now is this new challenge. I need to get on a team and start wholesaling. And like, I just it's so hard not to get caught up in all that stuff, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
exciting. You want to meet people, you want to network, you want to be on a team, you're feeling lost. And so that was what, like, ultimately, even the amount of delay that I did have from when I joined sub two to my first PML deal, which wasn't very much, but even that amount of delay was because I was just like trying to do everything. Like, oh, this sounds good, or oh, maybe I'll, build a hotel, or like crazy stuff. And it's like, this doesn't make any sense. You need to just pick one thing and tunnel vision. And once I did that and I just like nailed down one thing, I'm going to try it for 90 days. And if then I come out of it and it's not working, or it's not what I thought it would be, then I can take everything I learned from that and shift into something else. That knowledge it doesn't go to waste. If anything, it helps you into the next thing. And so I just like made a commitment to myself that I was going to just focus on one thing, not participate in the challenge, like silence everything else and focus on it. And once I did that, oh my gosh, everything changed. Like, that's when everything took off.
I think that's great
So
advice,
anybody that's
honestly.
getting into it is like, that's what I try to tell them. Like, once you go through that huge learning curve that everybody goes through and you're feeling so overwhelmed that you could cry, like, get through that and then pick one thing and just laser vision, like, go into it 90 days and then see where you're at.
Yeah. No, I love that because it's so true, right? I mean, especially in that particular community that you're talking about, I think it's very easy to have like shiny object syndrome, right? Where you want
Mhm.
to know everything and be involved in everything. And I think there's a certain level that you need to be confident in understanding like what the different roles do, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be acting in that capacity.
Right.
So I think we talked about this before, but initially I was wholesaling with Andrea. I did it for a bit and I was like, nope, not my deal. This is not what I want to do you know?
Yeah.
And so I think some of it may just be exploring, but then you need to make the decision, right? Does this align? Does it go
Mhm.
with my personality? Does it achieve my goals? And then you continue to find whether it's, you act as a transaction coordinator, you wholesale, you lend, you do whatever you want to do in real estate, but it's a matter of, like you said, finding that one thing and committing to it. So I think that's great advice. But I think a lot of people, like you said, do get kind of trapped in that mindset of like, oh, this is new or this looks really good or I'm super intrigued by this, but you just need to have like that narrow focus, right? Um, I think that that is super helpful. And I wish, lots of people say it, but it's almost like you have to hear it a lot to be like, oh, okay, I get it. And maybe this time I'll listen.
Yeah, exactly. I had to hear it so many times before I finally was like, okay, maybe I should do that. Maybe I should listen to that one piece of advice. And it really did make all the difference. So I'm glad I finally listened.
Yeah, it's something I need to do a better job of myself. I'm all over the place, but I'm going to be focusing on your advice too, because I think, we have, like, I do wholesaling right now, and it's not like my primary thing, but it does help like get connected with deals. And me and some of the
Hmm.
partners are buying co-livings. So we have one here in Utah, and we're under contract on another one. So kind of getting that ramped up. But fortunately, I'm not the one that's like managing that or doing anything with it. So it's just helping like acquire the deal. But
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's like how we'll come across things like, oh, this could be a good short-term rental, or oh, this actually pencils really well as a long-term. I'm like, no, I just need to like try it. So I'm like, my one thing is currently like 5, but that's good for me.
And you've been in the space long enough where you have like taken time to really learn at a high level each of these things, I would assume, or I think. And so it's mostly just like when you're first getting started that you need to just pick something. And that's what I'm saying. Like 90 days is not a long time. 3 months is not a long time. So if you can just focus and like really learn something for 3 months, 90 days, and then pivot and then decide to take it a different way or to switch gears, then that's different because you actually gave it a full try and you like no distractions focused on it. But when you're like 2 years in, or I don't know how long you've been in this, Andrea, but at least 2 years, I would assume, then at that point you're able to kind of like juggle a little more stuff because you've taken the time to deep dive and learn about them all. So that's a little bit different, but definitely as a newbie, like when I first got started, I needed to just one thing at a time.
Totally. Yeah. And so thinking about kind of, how you've been honing in your success with lending and things like that, I know that the transition from, being a PA and you're slowly kind of making your way into more of a full-time real estate sort of scenario, but not all the way there yet. And, you've kind of mentioned your love of like flexibility and stuff. So have you come up with any like habits or routines to really develop productivity specifically and keep focused on your goals?
I'm developing them as we speak. I'm trying to figure out what makes sense and what works for me as like a stay-at-home mom. Essentially, when I'm home on the weekdays, I have my daughter with me, and she's only 18 months, so it's not like I can like go put her on an activity. And then over the summer, I have my 4-year-old here with me too. So balancing all of that, and then also being productive, and then also my W-2 is definitely like a work in progress. But I have found like my most productive times of the day, which shocker is when my daughter's at nap time. So I really use those 3 hours, which she's an amazing sleeper, thank goodness. So I have 3 hours in the middle of the day to like schedule as many calls as I need. Anytime that I actually want to like get on a Zoom or I need to do some work on the business that I really need focus, I know it has to be within that time frame. And so I was able to really dial in those 3 hours in the middle of the day when I have my days at home. And then in addition to that, I've started to have like a little, she's like just graduated high school and she lives down the street. And so she comes over for maybe 2 or 3 hours in the morning, maybe twice a week. And we'll play with her, entertain the kids, or give me some time to go run errands, things like that. So I either have a little bit more time there in the morning while she's helping me with the kids to work on the business, or I can get some other things done in those couple hours so that when my daughter's napping, I can use the 3 hours with no distractions, nothing else going on to really do some work. So that's been helpful. And that's kind of the balance that I found at this point. It's obviously ever evolving. Like my daughter's not going to nap for 3 hours forever. And so that's going to need to be figured out. But for right now, that's working. And that's given me enough time to dedicate to the business and be there with the family and have my days at W-2. So we're working on it. I'm learning that balance is not really a real thing. It's just like a perceived thing. And so we just chase balance every day.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I recently hired a couple of assistants, kind of a similar vein, and
Yeah.
so I have one that helps with more of my social media stuff, like
Mhm.
strategy and like kind of background things, and then one that helps more with real estate stuff. So like if I need somebody to go show a property or something, or get pictures or videos or whatever, I kind of have her like ready to go, and then I have somebody that comes to my house and helps like as like more of a house manager, like does cleaning and errands and like took my Amazon returns, like just like stuff like that, right? And I've
Amazing.
been really helpful. Yeah, so that's awesome to hear. The things that you've developed. That's really cool.
Yeah, someday I hope to have a house manager.
You can hire Andrea. Just kidding. She's trying to do everything. So So on that same line of thought, so I know we talked about what advice you would give to someone who's new in their real estate journey, but what advice would you give specifically, maybe more geared to newer lenders? So, like, are there any like lessons, like looking back, where you're like, oh crap, like you should really vet this, or hey, I didn't know this, that this would be a good lesson for new people for lending, or just anything that's popping off in your head where you're like, I would tell them this for sure.
A couple things. Something that has stuck with me for the last few months was I hopped into a office hours with a lender that is pretty well known in at least some of the real estate communities that I'm in. Her name is Rhea Campbell, and she kills it in everything that she does. And so I hopped into her office hours one day, and I did not even ask the question. A different lender asked the question of like, "Hey, Rhea, I am a lender, and I have a very extensive vetting process for my borrowers, like credit checks and background school history and like all this stuff. It's just very extensive. And he said, but the problem I'm having is that it's turning a lot of borrowers away. Like a lot of the borrowers, I'll get started with the vetting process and then they'll like basically ghost me because they're just getting turned off by this extensive process. And he's like, do you think that I'm overdoing it, or what would you do? And she was like, yeah, I sure do. I think you're overdoing it. She said, there, to some extent, like, yes, of course, I underwrite the deal and I look at the numbers and all of that stuff. But more than underwriting the deal, she said, most of my decision is based off of emotional intelligence and what I can feel from that person. Uh, you can just feel out a person, especially as you know, mature in life and grow. You can just have a conversation and get to know somebody, and you get to know their, you know, maturity level, their emotional intelligence, all of those things. And she said most of my decision is based off of that outside of the underwriting. And so I was like, okay, that's huge. Like that makes a big difference versus this step A through Z. And then that checks the box. So yes, I'm lending, even though they could be like, sorry to say, but like a horrible person or malintended, you know, intended, where she's like, nope, I just look through the numbers. And if they look good and I feel a good connection with this person that I can trust them and they're diligent, then that's kind of my process. So that was
Yeah.
huge for me. One. Second thing is that one of my very first lending deals has gone late. It's like almost 2 months late now. And I, at that time, I'm going to be completely honest with you. My first PML deal, I thought I like knew something. I looked at his numbers. He sent me like an underwriting spreadsheet. I was like, hey, looks good to me. Like I didn't even know how to really underwrite at that point. I did some basic math and I was like, sounds good. Now the house is not selling. And so he is like kind of stuck in this weird position of like, I can't refinance out everything that I owe on it. And it's not selling. And so we're just like kind of stuck. However, to Rhea Campbell's point, he has never once ghosted me or left me on red or made me question whether he's, you know, a truthful person or anything like that. It's all been very fully transparent. I'm kind of working with him to find some hard money lenders that maybe could get him out. So he's still paying me my monthly interest payments, even though we're late. So this stuff's going to happen. But if you have that relationship or you have that feel that they have a strong integrity, then things typically work out for the most part. Not always, but that so far has gotten me through to a point where I've never been ghosted. Nobody's ever ran away with my money or anything like that. So,
Yeah.
so far,
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, no, fingers crossed, of course.
Yeah.
We all know that there's always risk, of course, in lending, right? And
Right.
you can do your due diligence, but there's always going to be that level of risk. And I love this question because I feel like there's so many different ways to approach how to look at the deals and what you feel
Hmm.
comfortable with, right? Because I can tell you right now, Andrew and I have different levels of comfort for different things, right?
Yeah.
And so different people can approach it different ways. Like, hey, do I trust this person, but may the deal be kind of confusing? Like, I'm going to rely on the person. Or do the numbers make a ton of sense and you're like, this person's kind of iffy. Like, do I really want to invest in this deal? Right. But like
Right.
at the end of the day, if the numbers make sense, like you can always foreclose, but like, is that person going to make it super complicated and make your life miserable? Maybe. So it's always good to really vet the borrower, but maybe not to the
Hmm.
extent that some people are doing it. Right. But great to check references, check to see if they have any bankruptcies, If they're ghosting you or leaving you on red at the very beginning, that's probably not a good sign already, you know? So
Right.
I think it's a really good conversation to have. And I love to hear different people's opinions on that. But I think at the end of the day, if you trust the individual, of course, having good emotional intelligence is always good. But if you can kind of vet them a little bit more as well, where you have that emotional intelligence level as well as, you know, the factual checking of their background, I think that that's a pretty reliable thing to kind of evaluate. So I really like that answer. So thank you. I just wanted to hear your feedback on that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why there's like a good fit for everybody, right? That's lenders and borrowers are constantly looking for a good fit. And a lot of times, once those people find somebody that they vibe with and that they're both on the same page and have the same strategy essentially to investing, they kind of just stick together. They just keep like reinvesting with each other and it just keeps going, deal after deal, because they've just found that good fit. And so I think that's a common desire that not only borrowers have, but lenders have, is to find that really good fit. And once you find it, you just kind of want to stick with it. So it's kind of like dating, like everybody's looking for that perfect fit. And once you find
Yeah,
it, you just stick with it. Same type of thing
very
for sure.
intelligent. Yeah, I love that.
That's awesome. I think, hearing about that first lending deal, I'm curious, to hear a little bit more about what you're doing now. Are you still lending with that same borrower? Have you recycled your money there? Or what are you kind of doing now from like a lending perspective and capital raising perspective?
Yeah, he has the majority of my money still. So I have not recycled my money because he still has it. I'm still getting my monthly interest payment, so it's not like a huge deal. But sometimes I wish, like, oh, I wish I had that chunk of money because this other deal looks enticing, or I could get an equity play in something. There's always exciting stuff that comes across the table. So it is what it is. I'm not too worried about it. I know he'll get it taken care of. But as far as that goes, he has majority of my personal cash. I have gone through a couple other methods of obtaining like funds to lend with, which has been really fun and really fun to learn about, and been able to help multiple people do the same. So I went through like the credit card stacking program, and I've been able to loan money through that. And I used a different borrower, the real estate firm that I raised for. I actually lent money to them just to say, first of all, say that I've done it so that I have skin in the game for other lenders that are wanting to come in. So that was one reason. And the other reason is that they tend to focus mostly on short-term loans, and that's what I needed for the credit card stacking, was a short-term one. And so it was just a really good fit for what I was looking for. So I've been able to do that, and that's been really fun to learn about. I'll be switching jobs here shortly to something else in the healthcare field. And so when I do that, I'll also have access to my current 401k, and I plan to roll that out into a self-directed and see what kind of comes up to invest with that. So yeah, definitely using all the strategies to continue lending. And in the meantime, for my active income, I've been raising capital and basically helping other lenders get started or continue their journey in private money lending, and raising capital for a real estate firm that is very, I shouldn't say very, but pretty significantly in size. And so I felt that they are very reliable and secure and trustworthy, because not only are you secured by the deal, but you're secured by a large real estate firm. And so I've been helping like my mom and best friends, other family members and coworkers get involved with lending, and it's watching it change their life has been the best part of this journey so far. So that's kind of what I've been doing for my active income, is raising capital for them, helping other lenders get awesome returns, and then honing in on the skill of capital raising, because one of these days I'm going to have a deal of my own and I'm going to need that skill. So I figured, why not learn it now?
That's awesome. And it's goodness, your story matches up so much with ours. It's like you can
I
probably
love
tell me I just keep like cackling back here, like as this is going on, because we both are kind of making the pivot into lending, of course, and like
Mhm.
had it, especially Liz had the bad experience from owning properties, and then ironically, we also have just gone through and rolled over our retirement accounts, our old ones, into
Oh
something
yeah.
good. And so we've both just done that. We've both done loans from them already. So like we're in that process as well. So
Mhm.
our funds are almost all the way committed from that situation. And then we're also doing credit stacking as well.
Yes, you have to. It's like free money. Why would I not do this? It's amazing. I actually enjoyed it so much. And so The options are endless, is what I'm learning, and it's so fun. It's actually I've been really enjoying it. I think it's super fun. So
That's really cool. Oh my
yeah.
goodness. Yeah. We'll have to like spend some other time and dig in a little bit more on your credit stacking journey
I
because
know.
this,
I was gonna say I love to hear about other people's experience with credit card stacking because they can be pretty different, and I love to hear like who did you use, how long did it take, how much could you get, all that stuff. So yeah, absolutely, we got to dive in.
awesome. Well, thinking about, all the flexibility that you have been talking about throughout this podcast recording here today, like we want to hear a little bit more about, any bucket list kind of travel or outdoor experiences you have upcoming, because I know you want to use some of that flexibility to make memories with your family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of my biggest bucket list items I just was able to do, let's see, a month ago. I was able to take a trip with two of my best girlfriends to Havasupai. We did the Havasupai Falls hike, and we were waiting for over a year to do that because I had bought the tickets, and then when we had planned to do it last September, I think it got flooded out, and so they closed the whole thing down. So we had to reschedule for May. And so we had the tickets for over a year. And so that was finally completed. So much fun. Um like I just get so high off of that stuff. So that was amazing. So now I need to like start thinking about what's next. We have two small kids, so we have to think about that. But there's definitely a bucket list. Like I really want to go to Banff, Canada. I really want to go to Bali. I would love to go to South Africa. So like these are just, someday type of plans. But yeah, I have a lot of travel plans on the list.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Me and Liz actually did have a soup pie together as a
No
fun
way.
fact. Yeah, back in 2018, I think it was. Was that right?
Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's so cool. Was it just you two?
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. I love it.
We may be the same person in different phases of
I
our life.
know. Wait, what? Am I telling you your story back to you?
Basically, yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good.
Wait, was the
Well,
hike in or the hike out harder for you guys?
so funny story, a little bit of a caveat here. I was fortunate enough to sprain my ankle at the very end of what was it called, Andrea?
The confluence.
You guys
Yes.
did the confluence. See, that's where you and I are different.
Yeah, yeah. So Andrea, with her pharmacist hat, luckily had medicine. So I piled on the pain relievers, hiked back to the camp, and we were able to take a helicopter out because there was no way
Oh
that I
yeah,
could
the
hike
helicopter.
out. Like it was so swollen. Like it wouldn't even fit into my boot if I would have taken my shoe off. It was so bad. So
Oh.
I would say
Okay,
the
well,
hike
okay.
in was worse since we didn't do the hike
Yeah.
out. Yeah, yeah.
Fair enough,
Oh
fair
man.
enough.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good. That's good. So obviously you've shared like a lot with us, and I think it's your journey is unique, but it's also I think very applicable to other healthcare professionals and just other individuals that want to deploy their money and have more
Mhm,
passive income versus like the active landlord management, etc. So
mhm.
if people would like to get in touch with you or hear more about what you're doing or collaborate with you, how can they get in touch with you?
I'm most active on Instagram and Facebook. So Instagram is Audrey Blotz with a Y, just because it rhymes better. I don't know, but it's BLOTZY. Facebook is just Audrey Blotz. I do have a TikTok. Things get posted there. I'm not active on it. I can only do so many platforms. So those are the three that I'm the most active on, I would say. So yeah, anybody can connect with me there if they're interested in lending. But also, I'm getting into RV parks and trying to start building my portfolio of RV parks. I'm under contract for one in Oklahoma, so that's exciting. So yeah, if people are looking to partner or have RV park deals or wanting to just connect in any space along those lines at all, even if they don't have a deal and they don't want to lend, they just want to hear more. Happy to help anybody or talk to anybody about any of those things. So please reach out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. We really, really appreciate it. It is so fun to just, hear your story and how relatable it is to us. And I'm sure so many other people as well. So everyone who's listening, thanks so much for listening to From Corporate to Cashflow, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks, guys.